Chapter 2. 3 nights later, old Major died peacefully in his sleep. His body was buried at the foot of the orchard. This was early in March. During the next 3 months there was much secret activity. Major's speech had given to the more intelligent animals on the farm a completely new outlook on life. They did not know when the rebellion predicted by the Major would take place. They had no reason for thinking that it would be within their own lifetime, but they saw clearly that it was their duty to prepare for it. The work of teaching and organizing the others fell naturally upon the pigs, who were generally recognized as being the cleverest of the animals. Preeminent among the pigs were 2 young boars named Snowball and Napoleon, whom Mr. Jones was breeding up for sale. Napoleon was a large, rather fierce-looking Berkshire boar, the only Berkshire on the farm, not much of a talker, but with a reputation for getting his own way. Snowball was a more vivacious pig than Napoleon, quicker in speech and more inventive, but was not considered to have the same depth of character. All the other male pigs in the farm were porkers. The best known among them was a small, fat pig named Squealer, with very round cheeks, twinkling eyes, nimble movements, and a shrill voice. He was a brilliant talker, and when he was arguing some difficult point he had his way of skipping from side to side and whisking his tail, which was somehow very persuasive. The others said of Squealer that he could turn black into white. These 3 had elaborated old Major's teaching into a complete system of thought, to which they gave the name animalism. Several nights a week, after Mr. Jones was asleep, they held secret meetings in the barn and expounded the principles of animalism to the others. At the beginning of they met with some stupidity and apathy, but the animals talked of the duty of loyalty to Mr. Jones, whom they referred to as Master, or made elementary remarks such as, "Mr. Jones feeds us. If he were gone, we would starve to death." Others asked questions like, "Why should we care about what happens after we are dead?" Or, "If this rebellion is to happen anyway, what difference does it make whether we work for it or not?" And the pigs had great difficulty in making them see that this was contrary to the spirit of animalism. The stupidest questions of all were asked by Molly, the white mare. The first question she asked Snowball was, "Would there be any sugar after the rebellion?" "No," said Snowball firmly. "We have no means of making sugar on this farm. Besides, you do not need sugar. You have all the oats and hay you want." "And shall I be allowed to wear ribbons in my mane?" asked Molly. "Comrade," said Snowball, "those ribbons that you are so devoted to are a badge of slavery. Can you not understand that liberty is worth more than ribbons?" Molly agreed, but she didn't sound very convinced. The pigs had an even harder struggle to counteract the lies put about by Moses, the tame raven. Moses, who was Mr. Jones' especial pet, was a spy and a tale-bearer, but he was also a clever talker. He claimed to know the existence of a mysterious country called Sugar Candy Mountain, to which all animals went to when they died. It was situated somewhere up in the sky, a little distance beyond the clouds, Moses said. In Sugar Candy Mountain it was Sunday 7 days a week. Clover was in season all the year round, and lump sugar and linseed cake grew in the hedges. The animals hated Moses because he told tales and did not work, but some of them believed in Sugar Candy Mountain, and the pigs had to argue very hard to persuade them that there was no such place. The most faithful disciples were the 2 cart horses, Boxer and Clover. These 2 had great difficulty in thinking anything out for themselves, but having once accepted the pigs as their teachers, they absorbed everything they were told, and passed it on to the other animals by simple arguments. They were unfailing in their attendance to the secret meetings in the barn, and singing Beast of England, which was at the meeting, which was how the meeting ended each time. Now, as it turned out, the rebellion was achieved much earlier and much more easily than anyone had expected. In past years, Mr. Jones, although a hard master, had been a capable farmer, but of late he had been fallen on evil ways. He had become much disheartened after losing money in a lawsuit, and had taken to drinking more than was good for him. For whole days at a time he would lounge on his Windsor chair in the kitchen, reading the newspapers, drinking, and occasionally feeding Moses on crusts of bread and soaked in beer. His men were idle and dishonest. The fields were full of weeds. The buildings wanted roofing. The hedges were neglected, and the animals were underfed. June came, and the hay was almost ready for cutting. On Midsummer's Eve, which was Saturday, Mr. Jones went to Wellington and got so drunk at the Red Lion that he did not come back till midday on Sunday. The men had milked the cows in early morning and then had gone out rabbiting, without bothering to feed the animals. When Mr. Jones got back, he immediately went to sleep on the drawing-room sofa, with the news of the world over his face, so that when evening came, the animals were still unfed. At last, they could not stand it. They could stand it no longer. One of the cows broke in the door of the store shed with her horn, and all the animals began to help themselves from the bins. It was just then that Mr. Jones woke up. The next moment, he and his 4 men were in the store shed with whips in their hands, lashing in all directions. This was more than the hungry animals could bear. With one accord, though nothing of the kind had been planned before, they flung themselves upon their tormentors. Jones and his men suddenly found themselves being butted and kicked from all sides. The situation was quite out of their control. They had never seen animals behave like this before, and the sudden uprising of creatures whom they were used to thrashing and maltreating just as they chose frightened them almost out of their wits. After only a moment or two, they gave up trying to defend themselves and took to their heels. A minute later, all 5 of them were in full flight down to the cart track that led to the main road, with the animals pursuing them in triumph. Mrs. Jones looked out of the bedroom window and saw what was happening, hurriedly flung a few possessions into a carpet-bag, and slipped out of the farm by another way. Moses sprang off of his perch and flapped after her, croaking loudly. Meanwhile, the animals had chased Jones and his men out to the road and slammed the 5-barrel gate behind them. And so, almost before they knew it was happening, the rebellion had been successfully carried through. Jones was expelled, and the Major farm was theirs. Manor Farm.